GrokTALK.
Today, we're talking about a reckoning, a possible reckoning. Recent jury decision gave $2 million to a young lady who suffered mental and physical harm as a result of gender-related surgery. And my first thought was, well, that's the reckoning. It's coming. It has always been coming. It was inevitable. And now's the time. We're going to talk about that, a little history, a little what to look forward to, we think. GrokTALK starts in less than 60 seconds. Not everyone can get up every day and look for ways to piss people off. But here at GraniteGrok.com, we do that almost every day. I can't tell you how many times someone's lost their SHIT and threatened to end us. But we're still here, pissing people off. It's almost like we enjoy it. And we've been doing it since 2006. That's almost 2 decades of news, politics, and opinion, and now podcasts, and we're just getting started. We believe in principles before parties and politicians. We defend free markets and individual liberty, and if that makes you mad, it makes us smile. We're like Grandma after she stopped caring what other people thought. If that sounds refreshing, you need to check us out. This is Steve McDonald for Granite Grok, and we'll keep shining the light on them for you. Remember back in February, March 2022, the state of Florida and Governor Ron DeSantis made a fledgling effort at doing something about the inappropriate sexual material being handed out, shown, or, in other words, exposed to children in grade schools. They thought it was inappropriate. I'm going to say that word a lot today. Don't worry. You'll get used to it. It's not good for them. Kids aren't even thinking about sex until puberty even. And sometimes after that, these days, it's just not something you need to do. And when you do it, you create confusion. You create a mental illness. You've basically taken a perfectly normal child and confused them about the body that they're in. That's sinister. It's a little evil. Maybe it's a lot evil. Anyway, we've been warning people for years. The bill in Florida was like, look, these aren't your children. If you were on the street and you handed a child a book like that, you could get arrested and put on the sex offender registry. What does being a teacher or a school administrator or staff or librarian do to exempt you from that? Well, absolutely nothing. But they have a lot of people. Unlike the average sexual predator, they have unions and political parties with billions of dollars to back them up. And they have. They've been fighting tooth and nail for this, even as study after study comes out showing that the supposed cure is no better than just leaving them alone. In fact, it's worse. So, given that there's no proof that the cure works, all you're really doing is just generating revenue for the people administering it. And now we've got therapists, teachers, school administrators, doctors, more therapists, all on the hook for treatment that kids didn't need, that didn't help them. As I've said time and time again on this program, on my Substack, and on GraniteGrok.com, if you just leave them alone, they'll be fine. They'll be better than fine. In fact, you could be encouraging about the person that they are and the body that they're in, instead of trying to convince them they're in the wrong body and that they should be proud about that. It isn't just about being lesbian or gay. It's about the transgender surgery. Now, I could see the natural progression. I think a majority of the LGBT community probably votes progressive. They probably vote for Democrats. A lot of those people, they can't have their own children, not genetically. I mean, you can do it, but it's extremely expensive. So here's the thing. If you need to grow your voter base in that victim segment, what do? Well, you recruit. Well, one of the ways they recruited was to say that you can't tell them they don't feel that way. Conversion therapy. A lot of states passed laws. You cannot, if somebody comes up to you and says, if a boy comes up to you and says, I think I like other boys, you're not allowed to tell them anything except that, okay, you do. Well, young developing minds, in a culture where everybody's amping this up and pushing it forward and encouraging it, it's all over television. You can't even watch a children's cartoon without being bathed in the LGBT, transgender, blah-de-blah what do we want to call it? Sewage? I don't know. I know gay and lesbian people who are great. They're not out there recruiting for the Democrat Party. They're just living their lives, being who they are, paying their taxes, going to parties, being great friends. And they're not, I don't know, pontificating? No, that's not the word. They're not missionaries from a cult. They're not trying to convert everybody they run into. They're just people and they're just being people. And that's really what it's all about. Nobody cares. I mean, okay, some people do, but the world's full of people and they're human beings. That's going to happen. Conversion therapy was bad. It was really bad. Oh, convincing children to cut off their genitals. That's not conversion therapy. Well, as it turns out, it is. It's literally the farthest extent to which one could go in the process of conversion therapy. We posted video from a young woman who was a lesbian who said that you were basically taking other women and boys and everybody, and you're not just allowing them to be a gay or a lesbian, you are convincing them to take drugs and to have surgeries that will do irreversible harm. A coach can't suggest to a kid that maybe it's just a phase he's going through, or he could get fined or fired. But it's okay for therapists, librarians, teachers, administrators, politicians to continuously bombard a child with stuff, trying to convince them to take those drugs and to get those surgeries. Well, like I said, a reckoning is upon us. Epic Times. Jury finds doctors liable for malpractice in gender surgery lawsuit. A jury awarded $2 million in damages to a 22-year-old woman who underwent breast removal surgery as a teenager, also referred to as top surgery. White Plains, New York. A jury on January 30th found a psychologist and surgeon liable for liable for malpractice after they supported and performed breast removal surgery on a 16-year-old girl who at the time identified as transgender. Fox Varian, now 22 years old and no longer identifying as transgender, was awarded $2 million in damages, with $1.6 million for past and future pain and suffering, and another $400,000 for future medical expenses. The jury found that in many respects, the surgeon and psychologist had skipped important steps when evaluating whether she should go forward with the surgery, and had not adequately communicated with each other. These missteps were a departure from the standard of care. The entire exercise is a departure from the standard of care. I think we'll see that moving forward. So that's the big news. Everybody's heard that by now. And that's why I said, well, here comes the reckoning, because there's a whole bunch of cases just like this in court, some of them older than this one, hanging on, I don't know, a thread, or the culture has shifted a little bit under Trump. A lot of people voted for him because they were sick and tired of all the transgender nonsense and the crap with the sex books in school. And it's not just sex with the same sex or another sex. I mean, there's sex with adults and children. There's drug use. There's smoking. Smoking! It's like the worst thing ever, isn't it? Unless you've had your breasts cut off and you realize that was a mistake. And so they just kind of got tired of it. It's just not appropriate for children. It really isn't. And I'm not going to go through the list of things that aren't appropriate for children. There's lots of them. And they're not ready for that. People are beginning to discover that children were not ready for social media. And there's a lot of movement there legislatively to peel that back and to try to keep them from having access to it. And with good reason. Not just because that entire environment funnels you into holes where you are constantly just everything that you think becomes real. And that's not good, especially when you're young, because when you're young, what do? You fantasize a lot. You think about things in terms that aren't necessarily as concrete or real as those of us who have been adults for a while realize, oh gosh, it was fun to be fanciful and free in my youth, but I have to be serious. That's just not practical. And maybe it's dangerous, right? We all probably did some dangerous things as kids. What could be more dangerous than letting adults tell you your parents are lying to you and convincing you to take drugs you will have to take for the rest of your life that will screw you up, and then maybe convince you to have surgery and neuter you, and your sex life is over. You will never have one. You will never know that pleasure, the intimacy. It's gone. And so people are pissed off, rightfully so. And of course, the pro-BU crowd doesn't want you to not be transgender anymore. So these lawsuits really offend them, and they don't like to talk about them, and they don't want you to hear about them, which is why we're going to talk about a whole bunch of them. So I asked Grok, see if I still have it up here, for a list. Current lawsuits against gender surgery doctors or therapists for malpractice or lack of informed consent. As of February 2026, there are numerous ongoing and recently resolved lawsuits in the U.S. filed by, did I say filed by? Filed by detransitioners against medical professionals, clinics, and organizations. These cases typically allege medical malpractice, negligence, fraud, failure to obtain proper informed consent, inadequate mental health evaluations, there's a lot of that going on, or rushing minors into irreversible procedures like hormone therapy, mastectomies, or other surgeries without addressing underlying issues such as trauma, autism, or mental health conditions. Many cases involve treatments provided to minors or young adults, particularly young women, autistic young women, or women who are at least on the spectrum somewhere mentally, a lot of them. That's why I think almost all of these lawsuits that I'm about to mention involve women. The number of such lawsuits has grown significantly since 2022, with at least 25 documented cases across states like California, New York, Texas, Nebraska, North Carolina, Rhode Island, and others. Did I say that too fast? Some are represented by firms specializing in detransitioner litigation. Okay, so that's new to me. That's very interesting. And of course, it's a huge opportunity for law firms because we're going to be seeing a lot of this. So Fox Variant, of course, is the one that I just talked about, $2 million. 1.6 million for pain and suffering, 400,000 for future medical. Yeah, boy, I'm having trouble today. 400,000 for future medical expenses. Chloe Cole, who you may be familiar with, I've seen her speak. She filed her lawsuit in February 2023, malpractice and lack of informed consent for puberty blockers, hormones, and a mastectomy starting at age 13. Blindly ramrodding without addressing mental health or obtaining proper consent from her parents. This is ongoing. Kayla Lovedahl, Kayla Lovedahl. It looks like Lovedahl to me, a.k.a. Layla Jane. She is suing for negligence and malpractice for hormone and mastectomy at age 13 without proper psychological evaluation or informed consent. I'm detecting a pattern here. Prisha Mosley, July 2023, malpractice for misleading into mastectomy and hormones, failure to inform of risks or treat comorbidities like mental illness. This is ongoing. Reinstated under new state law, extending statute of limitation to 10 years. Soren Aldico, malpractice and negligence for hormones and surgery without adequate consent or evaluation. No age given. Luca Hine, malpractice for double mastectomy at age 16 while treating mental illness, lack of informed consent. Isabel Ayala, and I will mention some of the people they're suing too in a second. Fraud and malpractice for hormones at age 14. It's just, let's talk about who they're suing, because you're going to recognize a couple of these names, and I should have read them when I originally went through this. Chloe, Kaiser Permanente, Dr. Susanna Watson, Dr. Winnie Mao Yu Tong, etc., etc. That's in California. Kayla is suing Kaiser Permanente, Dr. Suzanne Watson, Dr. Winnie Mao, same names in California as well. Prisha is suing a list of doctors, including Eric Emerson, the Piedmont Plastic Surgery and Dermatology, Bree Klein Fowler, Family Solutions, PLL. Family Solutions, I guess that's just like Planned Parenthood. It's not about planning parenthood. It's about planning remaining single. That's in North Carolina. Soren Aldico is in Texas. That was malpractice and negligence for hormones and surgery without adequate consent. Luca Hine in Nebraska is suing the University of Nebraska Medical Center, Dr. Nahia Amura and Dr. Perry Johnson. There are others listed. Isabel Ayala, Rhode Island. Okay. And she is suing the American Academy of Pediatrics. Woohoo! Go team. We want to see them get sued. And a couple of doctors associated with them. Leighton Ulrey also suing the AAP, a Dr. Jason Rafferty and a Dr. Michelle Forcier. And looks like a huge typo there by Grok. I don't know what that says. That's in Rhode Island. Malpractice and fraud for hormones and inadequate evaluation. Christina Heinemann, she's suing Planned Parenthood. Dr. Lee Stetzler, Maureen Gara, Jacqueline Dahl, It's a long list of doctors here. This is in New York. And then there's more. You just keep coming, and it's all the same problem. So I guess my question, and the reason I said Reckoning, obviously they have malpractice insurance and they have insurance companies and they have hospital industrial complexes and other organizations behind them. They can afford the lawyers. They can probably afford to settle out of court. They can probably afford the fines if it gets that far. But it looks like they're just trying to drag them out as long as you can. I don't think that formula is going to keep working because I believe that given the, even though, even though there weren't as many transitions as everybody would like to say there were enough that a cascade of lawsuits seems likely. Now, my question is, if you can't get a remedy at this particular level, or maybe you can, how much further do you go? Do you go down into the public school system? Do you go after who don't you go after, I guess is what you should say. Because it's not like people and parents and concerned activists and people like myself haven't been saying, "Oh, this doesn't make a lot of sense. This sounds dangerous. You really shouldn't be talking to children about sex. It's just a bad idea. That's why we don't typically allow it." We have teachers, union employees, all kinds of folks defending the crap out of this practice. I mean, vociferously. They make the people who were ranting and praising the assassination of Charlie Kirk look like pikers. They're just off the edge. And that stuff's all out there. There's letters to parents, there's school policies. The New Hampshire School Boards Association had a transgender policy and a bathroom policy. It's just, there's a lot of opportunity out there for people to be taken to court for something that resulted in this kind of harm. And they're going to pretend or act like, well, we were just doing what they told us to do, or whatever it is. That's just where the culture was at the time. Sure, slavery used to be the culture too. We even had a Supreme Court ruling that said it was okay. But anyway, you get the point. Where does it end? How many people could be held responsible? And given that umbrella and the shadow that it casts, is it at all possible to use that against them, to get them to stop? You are the taxpayers. They don't really seem to give a damn that it's your money that they're wasting exponentially to produce graduates, at least a third to a half of whom can't read or do math at grade level. That doesn't seem to concern them at all. It's as if the public school system isn't about education and learning. And we've talked about this in past episodes. We know it's not. It has absolutely nothing to do with that. Any actual education and learning is incidental to the purpose of the school system. It is to teach children to be mental health deficient. That seems to be what it is. To make them, how do I phrase this? The goal is not to teach them to think, to read, to learn for themselves. It is to trap them in this confused world where emotion is everything. Empathy is weaponized. And you don't need those skills. That seems to be what's going on. You get a small percentage of children who kind of get past that system. You know, look at what's going on. States are increasingly opening up schools and the monies that are available to educate children to take anywhere they want. And they are. They're taking it. I did a post in Arizona a few weeks back. Once they had universal tuitioning, basically, you could take your portion of some section of the tax dollars available for schools and just take it to any school you wanted. And they are, because the public schools are not centered on the idea that they exist to teach children some basic skills that they can then use to teach themselves. They're more interested in telling you what they want you to think. And that includes the entire gender bender thing. And they're not shy about it. Who doesn't have pictures of billboards or flags in schools? It's part of that culture. And I'm wondering, is it going to cost them? Which means, is it going to cost you? Yes, school systems have insurance companies, they have bonds. But at some point, the weight and cost become so significant that the system has to change or it has to collapse. I don't have a problem with public schools that teach kids to read and write, some basic history, some debate skills, and the ability to have some sense of what intellectual agility is, the ability to think around a problem, not just the way it's presented to you, but in a different way, in search of new angles that might open up your mind and a discussion. You have to have freedom of speech, and you have to have the ability to use it to find solutions to common shared problems, including problems in your own life. A lot of these people don't have that. They're still worried about being in the wrong body. And I think there's a reckoning coming, or at least I kind of hope there is. That's it for this week. You guys have a great day. Don't forget to watch the daily update. Wherever we share this stuff, please like it, share it. If you can subscribe, please do so. And please donate if you can. Any amount is great. We spend a lot of money on this stuff, and we can't do it without your support. So thanks again. We'll talk to you next week.